Hey class, welcome back. Here's part 2 of our lesson for 1.1, all right? So next thing we're going to talk about is properties of real numbers. So what we're going to fill in this top left blank is let A, B, and C be real numbers. Let A, B, and C be real numbers, okay? So some of these properties you have probably seen before. Some of them you may not, but we're going to go over these all together here, okay? So the closure property, say closure. Two real numbers give a real answer. So in the addition thing, what we're going to put, we're going to put A plus B is a real number. So basically what this is saying if you add two real numbers, A and B, and we already know that they're real numbers because we define them as real numbers. If you add two real numbers, you're also going to get a real number. Same thing for multiplication. Let's fill in the rest of this blank here. Actually, we need to fill in. So sorry, for these boxes, you're going to need some room. You're going to need line 1 and line 2, okay? So A plus B is a real number. So our example, if we do 2 plus 4, what's 2 plus 4? That is 6. Is 6 also a real number? You bet your butt it is. All right. So multiplication is kind of a similar thing. If A and B are real numbers, then A times B is a real number. Okay, closure basically means it doesn't like travel outside its set. So a real number doesn't become an irrational or a imaginary number or something after that, okay? So here's our example here. So we use 2 and 4. So what's 2 times 4? 2 times 4 is 8. Is 8 also a real number? Is 2 like 2 and 4? You bet. Cool. Commutative property. What I want you to highlight or circle under commutative property is order. Order. Order doesn't matter. Okay? So for example, if we do A plus B, that's going to equal the same thing as what? What do you guys think? B plus A. And our example for this one is going to be if we do 3 plus 1, that's going to equal 1 plus 3, which also equals 4. So both things equal 4 when you add them that way. Okay. Same thing for multiplication. A times B is going to equal what? B times A. Example, 3 times 1 is going to equal 1 times 3, which equals 3. I almost wrote 4 before in my notes because that was a goofball. Okay. All right, associative property. What I want you to circle for associative property is grouping. Grouping doesn't matter. Grouping doesn't matter for when you do associative property. So for example, if we do in parentheses, we group A plus B, and we add C, that's going to equal the same thing as don't group A, but group B and C, the quantity of. So the quantity of A plus B plus C plus equals A plus the quantity of B plus C. So for example, I'm going to use brackets here. If we do 5 plus 2 plus 6, that's going to equal the same thing as 5 plus the quantity of 2 plus 6, which still equals 13. Okay, so it didn't change the order. This is 7 plus 6. This is 5 plus 8. Those both equal 13. All right, same thing for multiplication. In parentheses, the quantity of A times B times C. Oh, get rid of that actually. It's going to equal the same thing as A times the quantity of B times C. In our example, again, brackets, we do 5 times 2 times 6. That's going to equal 5 times the quantity of 2 times 6, which equals 60. All right. This is 10 times 6. This is 5 times 12. Those both equal 60. Guys are doing great. All right, almost done. Okay, identity property. So add 0 or multiply by 1, you get back to your original number. The reason they're called identities, when you add 0 or multiply, what happens when you add 0 to something? What's 5 plus 0? That's just what? It's just 5, right? Let's circle 0 and 1. Okay, what happens when you multiply by 1? Does it do anything to the number? It doesn't. So it's called identity because add 0 or multiply by 1 doesn't change it. Adding by 0 or multiplying by 1 doesn't change it. It still stays the same. So for example, if we do a plus 0, that's just going to equal a, right? And 0 plus a also equals a. So for example, if we do 13 plus 0, that's going to equal the same thing as equals 13. And also 0 plus 13 equals 13. Okay? And then identity property multiplying by 1, a times 1 equals what? It equals a. And 1 times a equals what? Equals a. So we have 13 times 1 is going to equal 13. We also have 1 times 13 is going to equal 13. Two more properties. Inverse property. The inverse gets us back to the identity. Let's circle back to the identity, which is 0 and 1. So, what's the inverse property? How do we get, so if we're doing a, what can I add to a to get us back to 0? Well, I need the opposite of a. That's how you get 0, right? What's the opposite of a? That's going to be negative a, or the opposite of a, which equals 0. So our example would be, if we do 7 plus what? Negative 7 equals 0. And then the multiplicative inverse, it's going to be a times, how do we get to 1? What can we multiply? I kind of gave it away there. But a times what would get us back to 1? It's going to be 1 over a. Multiplying by the reciprocal gets it back to 1, right? So that's going to equal 1. And also, you got to be careful, though. A cannot equal 0. Why not? What happens when 0 is in the denominator of something? What happens to it? It freaks out. It can't divide by 0. That's like the one rule in math. Not the one rule. There's many rules in math, but it's a very important rule, okay? So, for example, for this, we do 7 times 1/7. That's going to equal 1. And 7 does not equal 0, so we're good. All right, distributive property. Just put distributes. And then up here, I'm going to erase this. I'm going to write back to 0 or 1. Back to 0 or 1. Okay? To distribute. So if we do, in parentheses, we do a times b plus c. What am I going to get when I distribute the a to both of these? A times b plus c is going to be ab plus what? Plus ac. Our example is going to be, if we do 2 times 3 plus 4, that's going to equal the same thing as 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4, which equals 14. All right. So we got a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of stuff. So closure property, it doesn't travel, it doesn't become a different kind of number, okay? If you add 2 real numbers or multiply 2 real numbers, it's also going to be a real number. Commutative property, order doesn't matter. The way you add or multiply doesn't change it. Associative property, the way you add or you group adding or multiplying, it's not going to change it. Identity property, adding or multiplying by 0 gets you back to the original number. Inverse property, you want to get to 0 or 1 for addition and multiplication. Distributive property, you guys have worked with a lot. So for these examples here, why don't you guys go ahead and try to figure out which ones go with what, and pause the video and give it a try. Okay, welcome back. Another thing, if you're still kind of confused about this, we can do one together. And then you guys can try the rest on your own, okay? So first one is 7 times 8 equals 8 times 7. Well, I know it's going to be multiplication, right? It's got multiplication in here. It's not going to be addition. But what's happening here? What do we change from 7 times 8 to 8 times 7? Looks like we changed the what? Do we change the way we group things? Do we change the way we distribute it? What we do? Now we change the order, and order is commutative property. So for this one, this is going to be the commutative property, of multiplication. Commutative property of multiplication for that one. Okay, if you want to pause again and try the rest on your own, you can give them a try. Otherwise, we're going to keep going here. 15 plus 0 equals 15. Looks like we added 0, and 0 is an identity. So we added an identity and got back to the original number. Which one would that be? Is that identity or inverse? It's going to be identity. This one's going to be identity property of, and we added, so it's going to be of addition. Identity property of addition. Okay. Number 3 is a little tricky. We have 7 plus x times 5 equals 35 plus 5x. So usually this looks like we're doing some groupings here, but this one doesn't have any groupings. What property did we actually use for this one? This one is actually the distributive property. Distributive property. Okay. All right, number 4, mn was group times p, np is group times m. What did we change? We changed grouping, so that's going to be associative property of, are we doing multiplication or addition? It is multiplication. Okay. The last one, w plus the opposite of w, or negative w, equals 0. Looks like we ended up with an identity. Which one would that be? Identity or inverse? Back to the identity is going to be inverse properties. This is the inverse property of addition. Okay. I will let you guys pause the video there. We're going to go ahead and continue the next last part on the part 3. Or not.